Today I'm going to run you through the mechanics for Tyrants Island Dungeon. Now I'm going to start with the boss mechanics so that you understand those, but at the end of the video I'm going to show you the path that you should take in order to get through this dungeon quickly, because you do not have to fight everything that spawns in this dungeon. It's a very large dungeon, it is very open, and you can bypass a lot of the enemies in order to get to the boss location. When you enter the boss arena, you'll notice that there are flowers around the boss. What you're going to want to do is stand next to a flower, essentially claiming it as yours. During the fight, you will be turned into a rat. And as you are turned into a rat, you will need to burrow into the ground to avoid damage. You're then going to have to unburrow from the ground and head towards that flower. Each person has to go to their own specific flower in order to turn back into human form. Now, one thing to keep in mind is you don't want to get too close to your flower prior to burrowing, because it will transform you back into a person and you won't be able to avoid that damage. There's a standard parry or block attack that you'll need to defend against. When he says, "I'll fry you," you're going to need to move around and get out of the way of the different explosions that are coming from the ground. I've found that even if I get hit by a couple of these, it's not that much damage, so just move around, try to get out of the way of those, but if you get hit by a couple, it shouldn't be a big deal. The second time that he says try to dodge this, there will be 2 of the 4 geysers that are located in the arena that will start bubbling. You need to head to one of those geysers in order to avoid damage from that attack. Both times he says try to dodge this, it is a wipe mechanic, so you either turn into a rat and burrow, or you get to the geyser to avoid that wipe mechanic. Now, I've only been through this dungeon 3 times, but each one of those times that I went through this dungeon, most of the team wiped, and it was actually only 2 or 3 people remaining at the end that were able to complete this boss. It would be much faster and much easier if we had everybody, but the fact of the matter is that even if most of the team wipes in this dungeon, it's rather easy to complete with just 2 to 3 people. Now let's run through the pathing that you want to take. There are only certain enemies that you need to kill in this open area dungeon, and if you focus on those enemies, you'll be able to speed through this dungeon. When you're doing dungeons, the fastest way through is always going to be best. Get to the loot as quickly as possible. We didn't even need to kill those enemies at the front, but the team stopped to kill them, so I stopped as well. If you follow along this path right here, you'll get to the main boss. Now, you may end up dragging some other enemies there, but that's what your DPS is there for. I recommend clearing out these 2 enemies that I just attacked that are on the tip of this island before you engage in the boss that's on that island. That boss is going to unlock one of 2 gates when you defeat him. Now, this is the first enemy in this area that you have to kill in order to progress. So if you skip past everything else, that's the best way to do it. Just get to this boss so that you can get the gate open and move on to the next section. Then you're going to want to move towards one of the gates, and as we kill this reptilian lancer that's outside of this gate, we actually acquire the key for that gate. So you can see we have obtained the key for the left door, and we're going to need to head to the other door. We're all stocked up on this one, and it's actually the other door that we need to go to. Bypass all the enemies on your way there. No need to fight anything else. Now, you can actually run past everything in this section after you go through the door, because you will be jumping off a ledge. So just bypass all of this and jump off the ledge in order to get to the next section. You can see that my team that I'm working with here wants to fight everything in this area, so this actually slows us down and we don't need to stop and engage in this kind of combat. We can just head right down to the next area, the next boss, which is going to be the next step in this dungeon. Once you reach this cliff, you'll notice a large gate off in the distance, and you'll want to head towards that. This will be the next elite that you need to kill in order to progress through the dungeon. So just head into this area, take out whatever mobs you might actually drag into the boss fight, and then take out that boss. This boss has one mechanic that does a ton of damage. When he says, "I'll sweep you," he's going to send waves that you need to jump over. I am terrible about jumping over them. I actually miss it a lot of the time. But if you just wait to resurrect, you will resurrect right at this location if your team can kill it. If you don't resurrect here, you're going to have a very long run in order to get back to this location. So I recommend just waiting until that boss is defeated. Now, the gate that opens behind him is actually on a timer. You want to make sure that you come up here to this location, kill this bloodthirsty reptile soldier, and interact with the lava cage gate lever so that that can be opened. That way, if anybody dies in this section, they'll be able to get through that gate. Most of the enemies that are in this area can be avoided and don't have to be killed. You do have to interact with 2 kidnapped sailor cages in order to get out of this area. So when you see those sailor cages, make sure you get over there, interact with them, and release them so that you're able to continue through this dungeon. The second sailor cage is right behind where you fight the bloodthirsty reptilian gladiator. If you are targeted by one of his dashes, it's best to get him to run into one of the 4 braziers that are around this circle. That will stun him and allow everyone to do massive amounts of damage. This fight is kind of all over the place, so the more times you can get him stunned and do lots of damage, the better off you're going to be. Once you've got him taken care of, just go to the next kidnapped sailor. That's going to point you in the direction of this geyser. You're going to want to go and stand in that geyser in order to move over the wall that is blocking your path. You do not need to kill anything else in this area unless you absolutely have to in order to be able to stand in here safely and not die. That geyser is going to shoot you high up in the air, so you should be able to glide over this wall. The geyser does still continue to work on a time basis, so if you miss your first jump, you could just go back, stand in the geyser, and do it again. From the last geyser, you're just going to run through here. There are a couple of enemies that if your whole team isn't here, you may as well take out because you have to stand in another geyser to get to the next section. So I recommend if everybody isn't together and already headed up the second geyser, go ahead and kill these 2. Then you're just going to wait in this geyser for your next ride. This is really simple. You're basically going straight up and it's going to spin you around. There you go. You just need to land up here and you have reached the boss location. I'd like to thank all my YouTube members for your continued support. Y'all are absolute legends. Don't forget to whack the like button if you enjoyed the video and subscribe for more content. And if you don't want to be out of whack, there's another video on the screen right now that you can click to support more of my content.